Hello and welcome to Game Changer. I'm Mariam Zia. Tonight we'll be talking about the situation in Gaza, where more than 59,000 lives have been lost, and now starvation is becoming another silent killer. The United Nations says that over 500,000 and over 1/3 of the population in Gaza is facing famine-like conditions. When we look at the response of international community on 28th July and 29th July 2025, world leaders are going to be gathering in New York to find a solution when we talk about two-state solution for Palestine. In today's program, we will be talking about different dimensions of this conference, and this conference is being co-chaired by Saudi Arabia and France. And when we talk about important developments in this regard, of course, we know that French President has recently announced that France is going to be, of course, recognizing Palestine statehood in September. In today's program, we'll be talking about how this decision is going to be a game changer because France is first of the G7 countries to do so, and now there is increasing pressure on UK, US and countries like Germany to recognize the statehood of Palestine, with over more than 140 countries have already recognized Palestine. In today's program, we'll be talking about the humanitarian crisis that is unfolding in Gaza, as well as the international response to it, what needs to be done. When we talk about the ceasefire efforts, of course, we know that the talks are also ongoing, but the results are still uncertain. What needs to be done? We will be talking about all these dimensions in today's program. To discuss this and more, we are honored to be joined in the studios by Bakir Yunus, who is Palestinian journalist. Welcome to the program. We are also joined online by former ambassador Ms. Seema Ilahi Baloch. Welcome to the program. And we are joined online by research associate at Center of Law and Security, Syed Basim Raza. Welcome to the program. Mr. Bakir, let me start with you. Of course, when we look at the situation and the humanitarian crisis that has been unfolding before our eyes, now it has been 22 months into this war, and with around and over 59,000 lives lost. What do you see about the asymmetry of Israel's war on Gaza, and especially let's talk about the bigger picture when it comes to international response to it?
The international response is going even more worse, because what's happening now is an open killing of the Palestinians. It's a cleansing of the Palestinians in Gaza. It is a removal, it's a genocide, it is a crime, it's an open crime what's happening in Gaza. And the international community is not responding. Even the Islamic countries aren't responding. What the movement happened in most of the countries is not enough, because it couldn't stop anything. They couldn't stop the killing. They are unable to stop the starvation, which is now happening by the Israelis. So what is Israel doing? They are killing, they are cleansing, and in an open camera, you can see activities that everybody can see, but nobody is doing any action. So any other movement or statements or protests or rallies actually have valueless. It is valueless. It is not counted because it couldn't stop what's happening. So the Israelis know this very well, that the only thing can stop them is a military action, and no country is taking military action. But it's on the other way, that there is a military support to the Israelis from the US, from the European country. There's a food also supply coming on from different countries, also from India. So it seems that these countries are supporting Israelis to continue the genocide, to continue their cleansing, to remove the Gazan people from their land. And you see, the main problem is not, as most of people keep saying, it's 7th of October. The main problem is the occupation itself, because since 1947, Palestine is occupied by the Israelis. So the only solution is foresee is the removal of the occupation from Palestine.
Of course, that is the solution. And when we talk about, of course, humanitarian crisis, I'll be circling back to that again. But Ambassador Seema, when we look at the progress so far, of course, What's your take on this, especially when we talk about the conference that is going to be taking place today and tomorrow, being co-chaired by Saudi Arabia and France? What's your take on this first? Also, because we know that this conference was postponed in June due to Israel's attack on Iran, and now this is taking place. How do you see the strategic shift? Because France is going to be the first country in G7 member nations to officially recognize Palestine in upcoming UN session in September.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for having me here. This conference came as a result of the ICJ decision that the conference must take place within a year. And I don't know whether this is a strategic shift as such, because it was supposed to take place in June, when at that point, that could have been strategic when Israel actually attacked Iran. And there was a good reason to then postpone this conference. Having said that, I think this is very a positive development that France says that it will recognize Israel in September. However, we need to look at the entire background of what the other countries have been doing so far. There has been an ominous silence by not only the global players, but also by the regional countries. For something like this to go on for over 2 years, or almost 2 years, when Hamas attacked in October 2023 and Israel retaliated, it has taken a long while for the international community to realize that the Gazans, the 2.2 million people over there, are under siege. There's no food, no water, no shelter, no health facility, etc. On what will come out of this conference is really depends on how the rest of the countries. I'm not very sure of the numbers. Some reports say that 48 countries will participate. Some say over 123 countries and organizations will participate. What they can do is build pressure, but what will actually happen will really depend on the US. Right. Because this can be a General Assembly resolution that they can pass, but it is the Security Council that matters, and we know that the US has the veto power. If they can build a framework for a two-state theory, that would be the best outcome for this conference.
Right. But Ambassador Seema, we all also know that, of course, US and Israel are boycotting this conference at this point in time. But at the same time, of course, we know that ceasefire talks are also taking place. So what's your take on this aspect regarding the progress as far as peace efforts are concerned?
You see, ceasefire talks are also meaningful, or can lead to a meaningful conclusion when both sides are agreeable to the kind of to making it happen. The kind of conditions that they are imposing, it will be difficult, I think, for ceasefire to actually happen in the long term. The tactical pause, etc., to allow aid to come in that the Israelis have announced is really not enough. It may manage starvation, but it will not help to bring peace to the region.
Right. Of course, it will not help when we talk about this announcement of 10 hours daily pause by Israel. Coming to Basim, when we talk about, of course, this conference and 147 out of 193 members of UN have recognized a Palestinian state, and of course France is going to be becoming first member of G7 countries to do so. Is global consensus, in your opinion, now outweighing the pressure by US and Israel?
Thank you so much for having me, Mariam. It's a pleasure to be back on your show. So the point here is that this conference is very positive. There's no doubt about it. And there is a need to reiterate the support for Palestinians again and again, the Palestinian state again and again. But when it comes to France recognizing Palestine, I think the G7 countries, including, other than the G7 countries, the European states, they need to do a bit more than that. These recognitions are more symbolic in nature. When you talk consistently about condemning the Israeli actions, but on the other hand, you are not putting any sort of sanctions on provision of military equipment to Israel, you are supporting the Israeli genocide. This seems a bit, two-faced to me. So I believe that there is a need. Me as a person, I would appreciate a military intervention, a third-party military intervention. But uh, pragmatically speaking, we would really appreciate some sanctions on this apartheid regime, some sanctions on this killings, state that is on a killing spree of Palestinians. Some concrete actions, not just words, not just typical diplomatic statements. They're not enough. We know that the public opinion has switched, has shifted against Israel. But all of these statements appear to me as mere political statements just to cope up with the public pressure that all these European states and these G7 states have had.
Right, of course, and let me include Bakir into the discussion. Bakir, what's your take on this? Do you think this is as a result of course, increasing public pressure on the governments of the world that now they are seriously thinking about two-state solution, and this conference is also a result of that. And also when we talk about different countries like Saudi Arabia, which is one of the co-chairs of this conference, and they have talked about the strategic necessity. How do you think this aligns with interests of Palestinians at this point in time, and also when we talk about the broader regional security?
See, speaking about security, Palestinians are having no security now. So I don't think we are the people who have to provide security to others. We are the people who have to, others have to provide us security if others care about Palestinians, especially the Islamic countries, because the un-Muslim countries, we know what they're doing. They are supporting Israel blindlessly, with no mind, with no strategy. They just support Israel with the force they have. Speaking about the two-state solution, who says that we are accepting it? Why you are assuming that we as a Palestinians are accepting to give our piece of our land to the thieves, to the occupiers? It is not a state.
Yeah.
We keep saying the Israeli state. It is not a state. It is an occupiers. Those people they are thieves. They are thief of land, they are capturing the most holy place, which is Al-Aqsa, Qibla al-Awwal. So why we Palestinians supposed to say, yes, okay, we agree, this is our signature, take our land. No, it can't happen. It won't happen like this, by the way. And you have to understand that this place, the holy place for Muslims, all the Muslims have to accept to give this land to the Jewish. It is not we Palestinians are the only one who have to do it. It is not only, yes, it is now our responsibility to defend this country and to defend this holy place, but keep in mind, we are doing what all the Muslim world have to do. Yes. You all have to come with us, stand with us. It is not our responsibility only. It is the Muslim world responsibility. It is I don't know how many population we are Muslims. They all are involved in this war. If they are not taking now place, if they're not taking action now, it doesn't mean that they are not responsible. It is in their responsibility to take an action, to move on, and to stop the killing of the Palestinians.
Right, and that is one of the reasons, Bakir, that it is important to keep on reiterating the fact that this does not start from the day of October 7th, but it goes back to 1948 and then 1967, and we have to keep our history in mind. But at the same time, with this conference, and you refer to very valid points, but with Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Mustafa is also attending this particular summit. What legitimacy or power does this government hold when we talk about a two-state solution?
You talking about the Palestinian government?
Yes.
You see,
since a Prime Minister is attending the summit.
You see, the Israeli want a government that is armless, that the government that protects the Israelis, and this is the two conditions that the Israeli want to give, want to force for the Palestinians to accept. But you see, as you know, the Americans are not attending this, the Israelis are not attending this. So it will be, again, doesn't, having that effect or that value on the Israeli. on the Israeli occupiers, on the occupiers of Palestine. They will keep doing what they are doing. In their mind, they have their own plan, they have their own strategy to kill as much as they can until there is something to stop them. Otherwise, they will keep doing it. So that's their goal, that's their target, is to clean Palestine from the Palestinians, to claim, because they are claiming this is their promised land for them, it is their, Bible or Torah's promised land. So for them, it is a religious aspect, it is a holy place for them, and as it is for us, our Muslims. So again, I'm saying it is again not an issue of government, not an issue of, it is a military action now have to take place against those killers. And I don't think that we need more proof to say that they are killers or they are thieves. We see what they are doing now in Palestine.
Of course, the genocide is very, very much clear before our eyes.
So the action have to be taken in this accordance to stop the killers of the Palestinians in Gaza.
Right. And Ambassador Seema, when we talk about global dimensions or global response to it, what's your take on the recent statement by 28 countries, including UK, Canada, France and Japan, calling for an end to Israel's war on Gaza? How significant is this, or do you think this is just another political rhetoric?
I would like to believe that it is not just political rhetoric, because it is the first time almost that these countries have come together, in which there are so many European countries. But unfortunately, I would like to refer to the report that the UN rapporteur Francesca Albanese has prepared on this. And she talks about the whole economy of genocide, whether it is weapons, whether it is surveillance technology, financial services, heavy machinery. It is a very sad reflection on where the world has moved now. Economies are running on war. Everywhere you notice that the defense budgets of all these countries have been going up, and Trump has been insisting the NATO countries to rack up their defense budget to 5% of their GDP. So the whole edifice, the international law or rule-based system is actually collapsing around us. And in that, if these 28 countries can do something, it would be really miraculous. Also, let us keep in mind that this whole genocide, because I don't even want to call it a war. In war, there are two or more countries or states or peoples involved. Here, it's just a badgering of one very hapless population by another very strong country supported by an even stronger country. Netanyahu's survival right now depends on continuing this genocide. And so does Trump's, because there's a very strong Jewish lobby. I mean, who can ever imagine that one would want to develop a Riviera out of the destruction of a Gaza Strip? So all these elements that are in the background are not so much in the background. And we need to be very aware and conscious as to why this genocide is going on. It is not just about territory. It is far beyond that.
Of course, it is far beyond that. And Basim, I want your take on this when we talk about, of course, global as well as the diplomatic response. UN as well as OIC, WHO, they're calling for civilian protection and humanitarian law. In your opinion, why Israel has not faced strong consequences for these violations of the international humanitarian law so far?
Okay, so I call it the Holocaust privilege. Israel, when it actually, October 7th happened, we can debate who was actually the perpetrator of that. But when October 7th happened, Israel, it actually exercised the Holocaust privilege that we were persecuted by the Germans. We faced the biggest Holocaust in the history at the hands of the Germans. So now we are again threatened. Because we are threatened, so now it makes us, special in the eyes of the law. So we can defy every possible international law exactly the way we like. And that's exactly what they've been doing. Secondly, and most importantly, the only state that could actually persuade Israel to do something positive or show some restraint is United States, which is 100% complicit in this genocide. Now, when we talk about the European states, we like the rhetoric. When the British foreign minister talks about putting some pressure on Israel, we like that. When the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, he talks about it, we like that. But the actual reality is, EU, the European Union, and the whole of the European region, it's still in cahoots with the Israelis. Germany provides with the 30% of arms exports to Israel. Britain is still providing the F-35 parts. Other companies which are operating out of Britain, they're still in cooperation with the Israelis. So the words are not enough here. It is as simple as that. The words are not enough here. The United Nations is utterly ignored by the Israelis. It is ignored, it is demonized. The International Criminal Court, the International Court of Justice, they do not fear anything at all. So it's time for some sanctions, some direct sanctions on this apartheid state.
Right, of course, direct sanctions, and there have been calls for that for the past 22 months. But at the same time, when we talk about, of course, global response, diplomatic response, we have seen a shift over time in the response of these governments on the pressure of public, of course. But Basim, when we talk about this particular conference that is going to be taking place in New York, this is being described as last best hope. What's your take on that? And also, how do you think this is going to be different from the previous peace efforts that have been made?
Okay, so the previous peace efforts that have been made, when we talk about the ceasefire efforts that were made by the United States, there was never a call for a comprehensive ceasefire ever. Every single time when they talk about a ceasefire, it is for 60 days, as we've seen the last time. And now the one that they were negotiating was also for 60 days, again, which is obviously denied by the Palestinians, and they had to. Like, you cannot have a ceasefire for giving the breathing space to the killers so that they can sit back, relax, and then get back on it. So when it comes to this conference, I really and wholeheartedly hope that something positive comes out of it, although the situation is very pessimistic. Because when there is an involvement of, or I would say even a tiny little shadow of United States over this, I don't think something positive can come out of it. Now, there are proofs that US is, the people from US, private contractors, are a part of the people who are killing the Palestinians at these food checkpoints. They established this so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. And there were
and
four
it has killed
posts.
over 1,000 people, of course, innocent people that were,
exactly,
of course.
Over 1,000. And exactly while they were asking for food.
But Basim, let's come to the point of the role of regional powers and emerging powers like China and Brazil. What do you think, what role they can play at this critical diplomatic juncture?
Okay, Chinese, they have a very strong foreign policy rule that they are non-interventionist. They will never intervene directly into any conflict, any bilateral conflict or regional conflict at all. But the Chinese voices have been very positive, very positive. They have exerted a huge lot of pressure on the Israeli establishment as well. But the reality here is that Chinese actually alone, or the Brazilians or the developing world alone, cannot do anything substantial in this case unless or until the Western supporters, the European and the Americans, they do not restrain their support for Israel. They have to do that. Because the world is actually, I'm seeing a very catastrophic anarchic sort of an order. Because all the international organizations, which used to have some influence, they don't have that influence anymore, at least not in case of Israel. So the Chinese, although their role is very positive, but concrete actions have to be taken from the side of the Europeans and the Westerners, and the Chinese and the developing world.
Right, and talking about... Right, and talking about concrete actions, Ambassador Seema, what's your take on this, especially when we talk about the role of ICC and ICJ? Do you think they can realistically impose sanctions on Israel without any political blowback?
So far, as we know, the International Court of Justice has tried, and so has the ICC, but they have not succeeded. And in fact, that is a worse situation. When they don't take a decision, nobody is reacting. But when they take a decision and nobody is implementing it, I think that just goes to show the lack of their implementation capability and the fact that none of the world powers or countries want to even listen to what they are saying. But there was something interesting that you had asked earlier and what the role of the region should be. And in the region, there has been, interestingly, no security framework like they do have in some countries, or trade frameworks. Each country seems to go their own route and have their own relationship with Israel. So they cannot even form a bloc against Israel. In fact, Israel is the one that has slowly been implementing its own and longer-term objectives, destroying Syria, Lebanon, other countries around it, and of course, and making friends with the UAE and Qatar. So the whole region, the Arab, the Muslim world, is divided. Similarly, between Iran and Turkey, there are issues between those countries, and then they have their own issues with Israel. So where will this pressure come from? As is being said by other esteemed panelists, it's either the US or no one, because China also has this policy of non-intervention. They only go and make their influence felt through economic and soft power, if you may call it that. Russia is right now embroiled in Ukraine, has its own issues. So who's really going to act? If it's not the US, it will not happen.
Right, right.
And for that,
Ambassador Seema, I want to circle back to your point that you alluded earlier regarding that there does not exist a roadmap in the Middle East or the larger Arab states. So do you think there is any path to reviving, or realistically speaking, there is any path to reviving the 2002 Arab initiative, keeping in mind the current situation on ground?
frankly, if I were to give you a one-word answer, the answer would be no. But there is always hope. And if the countries realize that today it is Gaza, tomorrow it could be the West Bank, and day after tomorrow it could be any other country. As we are seeing now, it is, any excuse can be used that the Druze, protection of the Druze in Sweda in Syria is happening. And similarly, all other countries, till they realize that one of them could be next on the hit list, they will not come together. For that realization to come, either it's very, very strong diplomacy or very strong leadership in these countries, which I'm afraid I don't see happening in the near future. But perhaps in the long term, if these countries and their leaders realize that their own survival depends on making a collective effort to contain what Israel is doing and to put a stop. Military solution, in my personal view, is never a good solution. We are just giving more fodder, both in terms of human lives and in terms of running the war economy. So if these countries do realize that a diplomatic push is needed, that is the way to go.
Right, diplomatic push is needed. And Ambassador Seema, since we are talking about regional dimensions, and this particular conference that we are talking about is titled and being held under the title of International Conference for Peaceful Settlement and the Implementation of the Two-State Solution. What concrete deliverables can we expect out of this conference?
If they are sincere, the first thing would be an immediate ceasefire. This hammering of Gaza and reducing it to debris is and it has to be immediate. So the time frame has to be immediate. The second should be allowing aid to go in totally unchecked. And as you may have also heard, that UN organizations have been criticizing this aid being dropped from the air because it is inefficient, it's expensive, and it can also be dangerous. People have been hurt with it. Of course, the two-state solution, and then go beyond it to rehabilitating and rebuilding Gaza, and not with the help of companies that have been part of destroying it. It should be the regional players who should take a role, and perhaps give it to China, who has kept away from this conflict ostensibly.
Right, but at the same time, Ambassador Seema, it raises the question that without direct participation from Israel and US, can these outcomes from this conference be enforceable?
I think your own question has the answer. And of course, as you're rightly pointing out, when US and Israel are not part of it, and you had asked this question of the ICC and ICJ, it's very similar. These countries do feel that they are above all kinds of law, and therefore can, if they have gotten away with impunity so far, as you have seen in the last 2 years. If a country can be battered, if a population can be battered like this, I mean, what else needs to be proved? And if I were to kind of look at it in the larger perspective, it's really the voices of the people of these countries who can drown the silence and the complicity of these governments. So far, we have seen the same thing.
Right. And Mr. Bakir, coming to you, of course, when we talk about this humanitarian crisis, first I want your take on the revival of 2002 Arab initiative. Do you think there is any chance for that amid this current hunger like situation, settlement expansion, and other issues of genocide that we are witnessing at this point in time? And also, do you think that this shift of international community's response is going to be bringing any change in coming days for people in Gaza?
There is no hope anymore in any initiative. There is no hope anymore in the international community or the European community countries. The hope is now only, it was and it's only stay with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is no hope in any international community or countries. We know those people, even the United Nations. The United Nations, actually, because of the United Nations, we are suffering. Because of UK, we are suffering. Because of US, we are suffering. Those countries they gave the right for the Jewish to make their own state, so-called Israel and Palestine. It is us who suffer because of their decisions. So do you think that they will give us justice? No, the justice in their eye, it is what actually killing us now. They think that killing of Palestinians is justified because of 7th of October. They are saying because it's the Holy Land of the Jewish, the occupation is justified. So for them, the international law, the international community, the United Nations laws, it all goes in one direction. And all this direction is against us, against the Palestinians, against our right in our land, against our holy place in Palestine. So to have a hope in them, no, there is no hope at all. To expect something good from them, no, not at all.
So, Mr. Bakir, do you think it is already too late and Gaza has become a living example of human catastrophe, or do you think we can still fight for the justice for the people of Gaza when we talk about accountability for Israel for the war crimes that we have been witnessing for the past 22 months?
Fighting for Gaza is must. Fighting for the right of Palestinians is must. Holding each person accountable against what's happening in Gaza now, it's also must. It's going to happen. Maybe now we don't have enough force to do that, but time will come. See, the strong person never stays strong. The time evaluates, it changes. Things are not, it never stay the same. Now, yes, it is the time that the Americans and the Israeli have the power, but this will not stay for long. So when they are not strong enough, what they will do then? How they will face the accountability? It will be huge. And see, being strong, destroying, killing doesn't make you have the right to hold a piece of land. Doesn't make you have the right to do what you're doing. So being a thief, being a killer, you will always stay a thief and a killer. You have asked before one of the guests that what should be. See, when you put a wild animal, you are asking him why there's Israel doing this. So when you put a wild animal here now, a lion or a tiger, and will start biting us, killing us, eating us, you will ask, oh, you are an animal, why are you doing this? No, a wild animal do this. So what we do as a human, we imprison them. We kill them, we stop them, because there's no way else to deal with wild animals. So it's same with the Jewish. They are doing this. They are just killing. They don't know why. It is in their blood. It is in their religion. It is in their mind that they have to kill others, and we others have to be their slaves. So that's what they're doing. So they are following very carefully, very closely their religion, which is actually state that especially others. All the others who they mean with the others who are not Jewish is as slaves for them. So they think that Palestinians have to come or should come as slaves for them. And inshallah, this will never happen. And yes, one day we will hold each person accountable for what's happening for the people in Gaza.
Right, of course, that accountability remains important. But at the same time, Bakir, I want to take on what is needed for a sustained international peace process when we talk about Gaza, and of course there are talks about the day after, about the rebuilding of Gaza. Of course, the thousands of innocent lives have already been lost, including children, and now starvation has become another silent killer. But at the same time, of course, we have to keep on talking about a sustainable solution for this crisis. So what are 2-3 key points that you want to mention?
See, you're talking about long-term peace process. Peace can't come with an occupier on your head, with the thief, with the killer standing on your door. So of course you can't stay in peace. You have, first of all, to remove the killer, the thief, the occupier from your land. And other countries have to take this action, have to stand with the Palestinians, have to stand for the right of the people of Palestine, because actually this is their land. Giving the others the right or the legitimacy to do this, this will never bring peace to the region. Third, yes, supplying food. You know that, for example, UNRWA was saying just a few hours ago that dropping aid is even more expensive than sending the aid through roads. Why you are doing
Plus,
this?
it is very inhumane,
Exactly.
against human integrity.
And why it's happening?
Yes.
Who decide to throw the aid from the sky? Why don't you give it on ground? So actually they are playing with the Palestinians. They're trying to change their mindset and to make them as slaves for the Israelis, slaves for the food, slaves for... Inshallah, this will never happen, I'm telling you. But yes, now we need, not the Palestinians. We as Muslims need to move to save the Palestinians, because if we don't do this, it will stay on our history that we have left them alone. We have left the Palestinians alone. We have not done anything which is stopping the killing of the Palestinians, which we are seeing it every day and every moment in our eyes, in our cameras, and everywhere. So the history will never, have mercy on us anymore.
Right, of course, this is very important for the Muslim countries, and the voices are changing regarding that. Basim, when we talk about the accountability, future scenarios, and of course the pathways that are needed, what's your take on the accountability? And also I want your take on this conference. Of course, if it ends without any sustainable solutions for the future of Palestinians, then what's going to be happening? Also, like we earlier discussed with Ambassador Seema as well, that with no participation from US and Israel in this particular conference, what is the future of the deliverables or the outcomes of this conference? Or do you still see some hope in the ceasefire talks that are being led by the envoy of President Trump?
I think first and foremost, the two most important stakeholders which are committing this genocide are not going to be a part of this conference. So how is this conference going to make any impact? I think you can understand that. So the point actually is that we need to reinvigorate the rules-based order in the international realm again. There is an utter need for trust building. Other states, okay, we agree that United States is complicit, Israel is committing this genocide, so let them aside. Other states, they have to reiterate their support for the international organization, for ICC, for ICJ, and their unwavering support. This is something that has to be done. It will take time, there's no doubt about it, but this is something that has to be done. Secondly, I want to add this, and I really want to add this. I have all my sympathies and all my support for Mr. Bucket here, but there is this tiny little element where I would like to differ. We do not dehumanize. We as Muslims, we do not dehumanize anyone at all. Whether it's Jews, whether it's Christians, Buddhists, no matter who they are. We do not do that. This Zionist state is also repulsed by Jew organizations in the United States, such as Jews for Peace. There are multiple Jews' voices which are raising against this Zionist illegitimate state. Most of the genocide scholars, they're raising their voices. So the dehumanizing factor, it feels a bit odd to be here. And we should not do that. We should not allow the other party to, say that, see, these Muslim think of us like this. Second, and the most importantly, when we talk about the dropping of aid, this is a deliberate attempt. This is actually the part of the genocide. This is actually the part of the cleansing. I have to say this. When this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, it established 4 posts, they are only operating 2 posts. 2 posts for distribution of food for 2 million people. Make it as difficult as you can for the people of Palestine, so they have to leave their land. This is actually the goal. This is actually how things are going on right now. Right. And so when we talk about, the solution, the people who are committing this, they're not going to go towards a solution unless or until they are persuaded to do so. And the persuasion comes from the global community.
Right. And lastly, Ambassador Seema, when we talk about, and I want your comment on this conference that is going to be taking place, if during the conference, if mid-conference, the recognition of the Palestinian statehood gains momentum, do you think this is going to be increasing pressure on Israel, and it is going to be leading to further diplomatic isolation for Israel, and maybe resulting in a solution, long-term peace or long-term ceasefire?
The pressure has to come from within Israel, whether it's from their people or whether it is from their opposition. As was being said earlier, not all Jews are the same, and not all Jews are like Netanyahu. Right now, he has control over the government. Now, if, to answer your question, if there is, for example, more recognition of Palestine and whether that will force Israel, I'm afraid not. If so far Israel has not reacted positively to all the overtures that have been made, if it has not reacted positively and has insisted, in fact, in dehumanizing, and that's the only term I can use, dehumanizing the Palestinians, the way they have to run for food, and he has used starvation as a weapon. From that kind of psychological personality, I really don't think that any amount of recognition by other countries will help to change his mind. It's a very different mindset. And for him, as I said earlier, his survival right now depends on just prolonging this situation in Palestine. One can hope that it will build any kind of pressure, but I don't think so. The pressure has to be built from around the region and from when we keep saying that it's now a multipolar world, but when you actually go into the details of it, the power still rests with one country, unfortunately, which is Israel's strongest ally. In such a situation, unless all the countries in the region or in other regions and the other emerging powers take it on themselves that they are going to sanction Israel in a very strong way, no conferences can help.
Right, and there is nothing certain when we talk about this conference as well, and the regional peace as well as the peace in Gaza still hangs by the thread. Thank you very much, former Ambassador Seema Ilahi Baloch, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Syed Basim Raza, for joining us in today's discussion. Thank you very much, Mr. Bakir Yunus, for joining us in today's program. That's all from Game Changer tonight. Take care. Allah Hafiz.